I'm Mike Tushir. Got a good call planned for you today. Let me just fix my sound here real quick. There we go. So I got a good call planned for you guys today. A little bit of a short call. And I noticed that the Google Hangouts thing, maybe some of you guys are having some trouble getting in here and seeing the live class. If that's the case, please let me know. I need your feedback on it. If this is a problem, then we'll go back to the other way of doing it. If it's not a problem, let me know that too, and we'll carry on. All right, so let's get into some of these questions. As always, we're going to start out with questions addressing proper execution of the workouts. So first one up says, if you miss your top set by an RPE, if you miss your top set RPE by 1 or more, what's a good rule of thumb for deciding how much more weight you should go for? In my case, I missed my RPE by about 1.5, and I added some more weight and still missed the RPE by about 1. I'm not sure that I understand what you're asking, so I'm going to do my best to answer this question, and if I'm answering the wrong question, follow up with me on that and we'll get it sorted for you. But let's see, if you miss your top set RPE by 1, let's say that your protocol requires you to work up to a triple at an 8 RPE. And when you put the weight on the bar, it's actually a triple at a 9 RPE. You're going to want to reduce the weight by about 5% for your repeat sets. Just a general rule of thumb, if you miss your RPE by 1, adjust the weight by about 5%. Now, if you're talking about the other direction in terms of your workup sets, so say your top set's going to be a triple at 8, we've got to do triples at 6 and 7 before you get to that triple at 8. If you miss your target RPEs on those workup sets, you want to adjust a bit, and that scenario is much more of a by feel thing. You can use the 5% as a rule of thumb, but err on the side of caution with that, especially if RPEs are easier than you were projecting. It would be better to undershoot by a half than overshoot by a half. So just use that as a rule of thumb, just err on the side of caution. All right. Next question up says, for every extra attempted set you do you remove a down set if applicable? Yes, you do. So if the protocol, for instance, requires you to go to a triple at a 9, and you put that weight on the bar, what you think is going to produce that RPE, and it's actually a triple at 8, well, then you want to do another set after that. And yeah, you should remove one of the down sets on the back end so that your volume is fairly controlled. If I will say, though, that if you're within a half an RPE, we generally say that's close enough. So if for example, you are supposed to work up to a triple at a 9 RPE, and when you take what you think is going to produce that 9 RPE, it's actually like an 8.5. We're going to say, you know what, that's close enough. Yeah, you could put another 2% on the bar or something like that, and maybe, but then that doesn't account for the fatigue that sets in as a result of the work that you just did. So that's why we say in general, half an RPE is a good buffer zone. It's close enough for what we're doing. Of course, you be as precise as you can be. There's always benefits to that, but that's close enough. And it gets to the point where trying to reach that next level of precision, going from 8.5 to 9, it has a cost associated with it as well. And you allude to a little bit in your question just by asking if you should remove down sets. So you understand that there's a cost associated by going for more sets. And that's just kind of where we draw the line and say, this is where we want to stay in terms of risk and reward. All right, next question up says, from our 3 working sets, if we find that the first working set to be a lower RPE, Do we modify the second working set as well as the top set, or do we only modify the top set? Good question. In general, it's going to just be the top set, assuming that you're getting fairly close. So again, what you're referring to, let's assume that there's a top set of a triple at 9 that we're working toward. So you have two workup sets. The first is triple at 7, then triple at 8, then we'll do our triple at 9. So what you're saying is when you do that triple at 7, if it's easier than normal, let's say it's a 6, do you adjust that second set, or do you just adjust the top set? Well, if it's a lot easier, like a whole RPE or something like that, you might want to adjust the second set a little bit. And that's going to give you a little bit more fidelity on what to do for that top set. Just keep in mind that a lot of times those RPEs for the workup sets are not super precise. If I'm telling you to start out at a triple at 7, if it's 7.5 or 8, that's not terribly unusual. That means that we probably want to adjust some weights down for the day. Sorry, I dropped my phone here. It means we might want to adjust some weights down for the day, but it doesn't have to be that way. It could just be that it's taking you a little while to get warmed up. So I would make some small adjustments to that second set, and particularly erring again on the side of being a little bit cautious. And maybe I shouldn't harp on erring to the side of caution so much, because it is personality driven. Some of you are going to be more aggressive personality types that tend to overshoot your RPE. And in that case, you're going to want to do what I'm saying and err on the side of caution. There are others that will never overshoot your RPE. And even to the point of you're rating it a 9, but I'm watching the video going, that's an 8, if that. So for those people, they're already conservative and they need to be a little bit more aggressive with it. So yeah, I'm just kind of coming at this from the perspective of the average lifter, I suppose. But the whole point of doing these calls and doing RTS programming in general is to tailor this as much as possible and get this programming as refined as we can. So please do that. Please keep in mind what your tendencies are, so that we can adjust based on those tendencies and hopefully get this training a little bit more dialed in for you. All right, let's move on into some program modification questions. This first one up says, I would like to try the train through method for my bench on my next meet, December 20th. Can you incorporate this into my programming? Okay, so first let me back up and give you guys a little bit of background on what the train through method is. For those of you who are familiar with my email list, I sent an email last week talking about training through and just a different method of tapering, really. It's a higher volume method, much shorter taper style, and some people need it, some people don't. It's really more of a method for people that are very volume sensitive. For example, my bench is very volume sensitive. If I drop the volume much at all, it doesn't take very long, like a few days, for my bench to start nosediving. So the train through method is what we're calling it right now. I suppose it's to you basically taper for a much shorter period of time. You continue your training longer, you keep the volume up higher, and you're tapering for a much shorter period of time. Okay, first to answer the question. Sorry, my mind's going really fast right now. So first, to answer your question, how can you incorporate this into your programming? Well, I did make a little diagram for you that I want to show you. So I actually did some prep work this time, and it looks like this. So this is going to be really simple for you to implement. What we want to make sure that we emphasize is 1 and 2 days out from your competition, you're going to rest. In the programs that I write, typically There's a weekend in there. We try to limit how much we train on the weekend unless that's, scheduling wise, the only time that you have available. So assuming that you keep to that sort of tradition, take 2 days off. This is what I'm doing with my bench, and it's working pretty well. The reason is this is normal. It's normal for me to take 2 days off at the end of the week, so it's not too much. And then 3 days out, I want you to do session 3. 4 days out, so rest day. Then 5 and 6 days out are sessions 1 and 2, respectively. Now, what does this mean? Session 1, session 2, session 3. I want you to take the same training that you did the previous week and just do it again. So typically this is going to include more triples. It's going to be a moderate volume, moderately high intensity session. Your heaviest work will have already passed. So this is going to be still pretty heavy, but not quite as heavy. You're just going to take the same training that you got the week prior, and you're going to repeat the first 3 sessions. Now, don't panic about adaptation curves. Don't panic about periodization and stuff like that. This is going to be fine. There's not enough time for it to have any dramatic effects, and what you're most interested in is maintaining the level of development that you've already worked on. So by repeating all of this stuff, repeating all the stuff that we've done the whole cycle that made you strong to begin with, this is the same stuff that's producing PRs for you week after week. So we're not going to change stuff. We're going to keep our changes to a minimum. And those are the kinds of people that tend to respond best to this sort of train through method anyway. It's people that are showing progress week to week and are not responding really well to normal tapers. So if that's you, then doing this should be a fairly safe bet in terms of performance. Just be mindful of any sort of aches and pains that you have. You definitely don't want to exacerbate any injuries when you're 6 days out or less. Now, to go along with that, at the beginning of this question, I mentioned an email that I sent out to my email list. If you're not a part of that email list and you want to be, it's really easy to get to. You just go to the RTS homepage, scroll down the page, and you sign up for our newsletter here. I'm sending about 1 email a week right now, give or take, and it's stuff that I'm not writing anywhere else. So I try to keep it a little bit conversational, and I try to keep it usable. I mean, that's the whole point, is that it's something that's useful to you guys. So if you want to sign up for it, you can sign up right there. All right. Okay, there we go. So that's that. Next question up says, what program modifications or exercises should I use to work on my deadlift weakness? I'm a conventional deadlifter. My weakness is getting it off the floor. This has always been a limitation on deadlifts, and I find that as soon as it's even 1 inch off the floor, the lift is in the bag. In the past, I've used deficit deadlifts with good success, and these are only rarely used in the RTS program. Can I simply modify the program to use deficits every week, or do you have some alternative programming advice? I hate to suggest it, but I'm biased against sumo. Should I start thinking about making a change from conventional to sumo? I'm 6'2", tall with good high jumping legs. All right, let's see. So first of all, we've got a conventional deadlift that's weak off the floor. In these cases, it's almost always, and I say almost just out of habit, but it's always a position thing. Your position in the deadlift, particularly your starting position, your back position when the bar comes off the ground, that determines your sticking point. And I can tell you with 99% certainty that if your weakness is off the floor, then you're a flat back puller, which is pretty much what we want. That's going to be safest for you long term. I want you to be a flat back puller if that's something that's acceptable to you. So your weakness is going to be getting the weight off the floor. We don't expect that to change unless you change your technique. What will happen is we'll strengthen your ability to get it off the floor, and you'll just be able to deadlift more weight. Your weakness will still be off the floor, but it'll just be with a higher weight, which is fine. You mentioned that you've had good success using deficit deadlifts in the past, and that's cool. We do have deficit deadlifts in the program, maybe not as much as you're used to. We also use other bottom end movement deadlift variations in this program. For example, we use pause deadlifts about as much as we use deficits. I want you to break the weight just off the floor, like just barely off the floor, pause for the recommended count, which is almost always a 2 count, and then complete the lift. That's going to be what's best for you in terms of developing that bottom range of motion. But I also don't want you to neglect the overload work. I don't want you to neglect the rack pulls and the top end stuff, because it's going to give you a chance to hold on to heavier weights. It's going to overload the entire movement. We don't have it in there a lot. The whole program is designed kind of with you in mind, somebody with your weak range of motion pattern. So you don't really need to modify a whole lot. Of course, you could send in a video and we'd be able to tell with a little more certainty. Yeah, if you've just had a lot of really good success with deficits and you really think that that's the right answer for you, then you could sub them in a little bit more. I wouldn't do them every week. I would do them in chunks, maybe do them once a week for a block of 3 or 4 weeks, but not more than that. And I wouldn't spend more than half of your assistant's time doing one exercise like deficits. The reason is, you can get adapted to that just like anything else. And the skill of deficit deadlifting is not what we're trying to develop. We're trying to develop your skill of deadlifting, which is why we do that every week. But deficit deadlifting, we'll use that as a tool to develop certain things. So that's kind of my advice on modifying your program to include deficit work. All right, we have a couple scheduling questions. First one says, next year I'll be competing for the first time. A bench only competition in March, then a full meet a month later in April. The full meet will be my main focus, but I also want to go to the bench only meet. How should I handle this in terms of programming? Also, when I know the exact dates, which date should I send you for guided programming? Okay, a couple questions in here. So the first one up says, you've got this bench only meet and a full meet. So how do you go about kind of doing them both? This comes up now and then. I recommend that you basically just train through your bench only meet. Bench tends to be a little volume sensitive anyway. So my recommendation is that you basically just take 1 or 2 days off of benching prior to your bench only meet and just do it wherever your strength is at the time. That way, that'll allow you to have a better and more defined peak for the April full competition, which is your focus. So you'll just need to send me the date for your April meet. You can wait until we get a little bit closer. I would say wait until we're 4 or 5 months out. Then send me that date and we'll get you into some specialized programming that will lead you to that contest. Let's see. I think that pretty much answers all of your questions for that one. All right, we've got a couple miscellaneous questions here. First one up says, I may have a problem. I've somehow tweaked my back or perhaps bruised a rib to the point it causes pain when I attempt to belt up for squats. I had to cut my session short today, my priority 3 session. My biggest concern is with me being roughly 2 weeks out. I'm going to implement ibuprofen with a hot-cold regimen. It's been an aggravation for a couple weeks, but never to this degree. Okay, so 2 weeks out from competition, you're having a hard time putting the belt on for squats. I wonder what it is that's going on. If it's a bruise, like you've bruised a rib or some sort of an impact injury, I mean, you should get this stuff advised by somebody who can see you and give you a good diagnosis is the real answer here. Because if you can get seen by somebody and they can give you a good diagnosis, they'll be able to follow up and give you a better prescription on what you should do. I think in general, um, if I was in your position, I would probably do the same things that you talk about doing, ibuprofen, hot cold regimen. I would also get checked out by somebody who could tell me what the heck was going on if I didn't know. Um, yeah, yeah, I think that's kind of where you're at for right now. In general, I mean, the same general rules apply as with any injury. Don't do stuff that hurts. Give it a chance to heal up. Once you're kind of out of that initial pain phase, start moving again, but keep it to like a pain-free range of motion. Gradually try to restore that range of motion, and do that before you start escalating the loading. You want to do things that are a relatively low neurological demand before you start moving up into those higher and more demanding sorts of outputs. Next question says, during heavy peaking, I always injure my low back. Right now, my low back spasm is really bad when bending over, sitting down, and doing other normal activities. Has this happened to you? And what do you recommend doing? Would skipping the priority 4 day this week be okay? And maybe do the priority 2 and 3 days later in the week? Uh, yes, that would be fine. Skip your P4 and just do the higher priority stuff later. That would be fine. This particular thing, it doesn't sound familiar to me. The only time I've had, back muscles go into spasm was when I've injured them acutely, like a strained muscle or a sprained ligament or something like that. Um, I'm not sure if you have any of that going on. You did say in a follow-up email that you've injured your lower back on the last set of your priority one work. Your competition's on November 22nd. Um, so in general, same sort of rules apply. Avoid painful range of movement. Um, do some hot cold stuff. Do some ibuprofen if it's not moving along fast enough. Although by November 22nd, I would hope that you're back in business. If things don't look like they're going to be 100% better by then, you need to go get it checked out. And it probably wouldn't hurt getting checked out by a professional anyway. They can tell you maybe with a lot more certainty what's going on. Speaking of getting this checked out by a professional, we don't have it set up right now, but hopefully, I don't know if I'll get it done by the end of October, but hopefully within the first couple weeks of November, we're going to have consultations available with our resident injury professional, Jake. We did a podcast with Jake a few weeks ago, so you can listen to that to get an idea of what's going on with him. He's helped me out of the gym a couple times now. He's helped several of our performance coaching athletes. We want to make him more available because he's got good things to say and he can help people. I don't know if that's going to be in time to help you, but even here's the thing. So at the point where you're at right now, it's less than a month out from your competition. You're kind of in just fix it mode. You just want to get well enough so that you can compete and perform at the level that you're accustomed to. Now, after this is over and after your competition's over and you start your next restoration phase, that's a great time. If you've got somebody available like Jake, or you want to pick up one of Jake's consultations, whatever. If you've got something like that available, post contest is a great time to get that stuff sorted out. Get yourself healthy, build up your durability as an athlete so that the next loading block that this doesn't happen. Like you said, that this happens to you frequently. So that seems to me to indicate that there's something that's not quite right going on. We need to get this fixed on a more permanent basis. So I would definitely recommend getting that checked out. All right, next up, we got a video coming up. So let me pull that up. All right. So this video, all right, this video is of Marcus. And Marcus is deadlifting. Marcus is concerned about hip rise and also with rounding his back. So let me go ahead and play this video. Okay, this is a great example of not. This is a great example of someone who needs to just focus on getting stronger. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way at all. All of us need to focus on getting stronger. Um, my point, though, is that your technique is fine. I don't see anything wrong with it at all, and certainly nothing to indicate that you need to you know remove some of your focus from performance and place it on improving your technique. Your technique is well above the line. Now, your technique will refine over the years, but I mean, what you're showing in this video is fine. You mentioned two things in your email. One is about hip rise, and you can see that you do have a little bit of hip rise at the bottom of your pull. So if this is kind of where you are setting up, and this is where you are at the break point, this is actually a pretty good frame to stop at. Yeah, so yeah, you do have some hip rise. However, I don't see that as being a big problem. I have hip rise in my deadlift, and I tried for 6 months or 8 months to get rid of it, and all I got was about 100 pounds weaker on my deadlift, and it never came back. When I dropped my hips down again, it came back almost instantaneously. And I've coached numerous other people, and when they drop their hips a little bit, yeah, they get hip rise, but they deadlift more weight. So I get it about it being mechanically inefficient and things like that. And I'm not saying I would teach a beginner to, try to squat their deadlifts or anything crazy. And you can almost certainly take it too far. But what I'm seeing in this video is definitely not too far. And a little bit of mechanical inefficiency, whoop-de-doo if it makes you deadlift more weight. The bigger concern would be about rounding your back. However, I'm not seeing enough back rounding to really be of a concern. Now, in the first part of your video here, when you're getting set, and this is where you're the most fresh, and like I can see here that you're really locking in your back. And then later on in the video, I can see here that your back isn't as locked in. But this is a small change. And to be honest, this early frame here, not necessarily this exact frame, but once you get down and get set, your back is maybe even a little bit hyperextended. To be honest, I like this position just fine. If you wanted to flatten out a little bit, that would be okay. But I mean, if I watched you deadlift, I would say that you're a flat back deadlifter. And furthermore, I'd predict that your weak range of motion is going to be toward the bottom of your pull, maybe mid shin. Definitely not a lockout issue, or it doesn't appear to be. Now, maybe when you get with really heavy weights, near 1 rep max weights, things get a little bit different. But from what I see in this video, I don't really have any concerns with that. Okay, so that's all of the videos that we have, actually. Last thing, and if you guys have any other questions, and I realize that there's kind of a delay on this call a little bit, and we haven't been able to do questions yet. So for those of you who are here hanging out, if you could type in something in the chat box just to see if I even get it, that would be cool. But while I'm waiting for you guys to do that, I just want to tell you real quick about one of our lifters, Brett Goodman. He competed in his first meet yesterday. He went 9 for 9, set a 120-pound PR total from where he was when he started guided programming 8 weeks ago. So big congrats to Brett. Man, that's awesome progress in a really short amount of time. Big congrats to you. I know you put in a lot of work to get that. And in his email, he said his attempts were very conservative and that he easily left 50 pounds on the platform. Man, I hope that's right. You're in for another good cycle then if you've got that much strength in reserve. So congrats, Brett. Keep up the good work. Keep training hard, man. And thanks everyone else for watching. Thanks for sending in your questions. If you've got more questions, send those in and we'll get those answered for you. Everyone take care. Good luck training this week. Build some momentum. We'll see you next time.